Michelle Obama is clearing the air. She wants everyone to know that she and former President Barack Obama are not divorcing.
The former First Lady dismissed these rumors that had been swirling around social media for months, rumors that were amplified when Obama was noticeably absent, Michelle Obama, from former President Jimmy Carter's funeral and also President Donald Trump's second inauguration.
During an appearance on the podcast Work in Progress, Michelle Obama said that people are quick to assume her marriage is in trouble when she simply makes choices for herself. Obama hit back at those assumptions. Let's take a listen.
They couldn't even fathom that I was making a choice for myself, that they had to assume that my husband and I are divorcing. This couldn't be a grown woman just making a set of decisions for herself, right?
Right.
But that's what society does to us.
But all may not always be perfect in marriage paradise. Michelle has previously admitted that she, quote, couldn't stand Barack when their children were younger, and has also suggested that his 2 consecutive presidential terms from 2019 to 2017 did take a toll on their marriage. She has also been doing a podcast with her brother that I think the numbers on it weren't as terrific as some people might have hoped for, but
well,
that's that.
I am a staunch defender of Michelle Obama. That may not particularly surprise you. She is one of my favourite people in American public life.
Oh.
But the other element to this is part of the clip we played, which is that her argument on that podcast is simply that women in particular often operate out of this sort of fear of disappointing people by not going along with whatever the preferred plan is. And she was arguing that her decision not to attend things like the Carter funeral had been simply a choice about how she wants to spend her time. She was on vacation in Hawaii at the time. She decided not to come back. But this then becomes this whole social media furnace burning up and throwing up rumors of marital strife between herself and Barack Obama.
Yeah, and she's entitled to make her own choices. She's not obligated to show up to any public events. It did seem kind of conspicuous that she was at neither of those 2 events. If she had, she could have just been ill or really had a conflict for one or the other, but she didn't come to either of them, leaving Barack Obama, her husband, the only one of the former high-ranking ex-president political figures who were there who's going stag.
Yes.
It was hard not to notice. It didn't necessarily mean anything, and gossip and rumor is what it is.
I think it is fairly widely, if implicitly, accepted that she didn't go to Trump's inauguration because she doesn't like Trump. He himself didn't go to President Biden's inauguration in 2021.
But Hillary Clinton was there, Kamala Harris was there.
Well, I mean, as they have the perfect right to choose to be.
And Barack Obama and Donald Trump themselves talked very noticeabably at the Carter funeral, just chatted very amicably. We couldn't understand what they were saying, but smiling, cracking jokes, which always does go to remind you that to be a successful political figure, you do have to have a kind of thick skin or a kind of, I guess I wouldn't exactly call Donald Trump thick-skinned, but just kind of roll with the punches. Like, you got to see and interact with people on a constant basis that you are totally opposed to and have a combative relationship with. This is the joke about people in Congress that they're screaming at each other at the House floor, and then it's like, drinks at 5, drinks at 5, and then they're all collegial and buddy, which can go both ways to being it's all kind of fake and constructed and it's an act for the American people on one hand, which is bad. On the other hand, you do want these people to have a basically cordial relationship in times of real crisis or emergency. And not want to kill each other.
Yeah, and some genuinely do. I can't remember now. Is it Tim Burchett? Some Republican congressman has this very matey relationship with AOC. I think it's Burchett.
Really?
Where he always refers to her fondly as Cortez, and they have this sort of.
Oh yeah, I saw them. They were talking once. Yeah.
To your point about people sort of having the capacity to move past previous enmities, I'm old enough to have covered the 2008 Democratic primary and that year's election pretty closely. If I were Barack Obama, I would never have made Hillary Clinton my Secretary of State. I mean, that was a vicious campaign. And he obviously did move past that and thought that she was deserving of that role. But I do think it is different for First Ladies or former First Ladies. It's not quite the same breach in tradition. I think that, obviously Michelle Obama is very, very deeply opposed, not only to Donald Trump's policies, but his persona, some of the things he's said about women in the past, Access Hollywood, all the rest of it. And so she's quite right to stay away. I do find it kind of irksome in a general sense that those very basic decisions become fuel for such a massive sort of conflagration of gossip. I guess that happens to people who are famous, whether they're famous political or non-political, but it kind of gets a bit much sometimes.
She clearly does not have any interest in pursuing higher office. She was described at one point as a possible presidential figure, someone who could unite the Democratic faction. I think it could not be clearer that she has absolutely no interest in that whatsoever.
No, and I thought, she would be a formidable candidate. I mean, going back to when her husband was a candidate or in office, just in terms of oratory, she's a very effective campaign trail speaker. Obviously, she's very beloved by the Democratic base. When her first book came out, I mean, that sold well beyond the ranks of staunch Democrats. It was a huge bestseller that sold millions and millions of copies. There was a second book that did fine, but not as well. But I do think that she has at least some crossover appeal. If she ran, that the sheen of that is often knocked off people. But if the question is Michelle Obama naturally, would she have naturally more aptitude as a politician than a Hillary Clinton or even than a Kamala Harris? I think the answer is yes, but she has no interest in doing it.
I think so too, but we're never going to be able to
never
test that out, I don't
sadly.
think. That does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Niall will be back here tomorrow with Amber, and I'll see the rest of you next week. Bye-bye.